The page is damp and the pencil drags. He writes "Dear Anna" in a shallow scrape under roots. The ground shivers with a distant barrage. He presses harder so the line will not fade. He tells her the night was long. He tells her he is fine. He does not write about the man who screamed and then went silent. He signs with a single letter. Dawn smears the ridge with weak light. The platoon leader crouches over a map. The order is simple. Cross the field. Reach the trees. Hold. He folds the page and tucks it near his ribs. The squad rises and the field opens like a pale river of frost. They move at a crouch. The radio whispers and goes quiet. The first shot cracks. The second slaps wet soil. They drop. He tastes dirt and iron. The hedge spits dust. A gun sits behind a gate. The barrel walks left to right. He counts 3 beats between bursts. They crawl. A corporal points to a hollow. They slide into it and the field falls away. The radio asks for smoke and gets only static. The corporal says we go on the 3rd burst. 1, 2, 3. They move. The world narrows to a hedge and a dark gate. He smells crushed grass. He hears a cry and knows it is not a child. He reaches the ditch and the gun jerks to a halt. A grenade blooms. The gate collapses. The squad rushes into the trees. Inside the wood the air is sour. Roots and wire snag each step. He adds one line. I will be home soon. He knows it is a wish. New order. Push to the farm. Link with 2nd squad. Hold. They move along a sunken lane. The farm shows as a low shape and a broken roof. He takes the doorway. The room smells of burnt wood and old bread. Mortars land. Behind the house. In the lane. By the well. Water lashes brown. He falls and the letter rides up under his chin. A runner arrives. He is young and his eyes are wide. Message for the lieutenant. The lieutenant reads and swears. 2nd squad is not at the farm. The men dig in the orchard. He sets a line of fire across the lane. He tucks the letter again. He thinks of a postmark that will not be stamped. The attack comes near dusk. It is sudden and close. Shadows rush between trees. Muzzle flashes punch the dark. He fires until the bolt is hot. The letter rubs like a small heartbeat. A man beside him falls. He drags him behind a trunk and returns to the line. The noise ends. Night eats the last light. The orchard holds. He sits with his back to the earth and takes out the page. It is warm and creased. He writes "We held." He stops. The field post will not find this place. He seals it with sweat and dirt. He lies down and watches stars push through smoke. He sets the letter under his helmet for weight. In the morning there will be another field. Another order. The letter will go with him. It will stay with him. The sky is ash when the first whistle cuts the night. A rifleman sits up in his slit trench and shakes frost from his sleeves. He checks the bolt by touch, counts magazines, and slows his breath so steam does not rise. The platoon sergeant moves along the line and drops orders in fragments. At 0600 the company will push to the hedgerow that runs east to west across the valley. 1st squad will lead, 2nd squad will follow in trace, 3rd squad will anchor the left. The route is a gap in the trees, then a ditch that curves toward a shed with a broken roof. The map is aged. Assume mud, wire, and rehearsed fields of fire. The platoon leader opens creased acetate and points at phase lines, checkpoints, and a black cross where artillery will mark the hour. He speaks of timings, boundaries, and what to do if the radio fails. Everything is conditional, but the oath is not. You will hold for the man on your right and for the man on your left. You will move when told. You will not break. Dawn lifts the darkness. The rifleman checks his sling, taps the compass at his chest, and slides an unfinished letter into a waterproof bag. The first move is a shuffle, ankle deep in water, a curse when a canteen knocks a stone. The point man finds a tripwire and they step over it like a sleeping dog. The ditch deepens. The squad leader raises his hand. Halt. The net says the barrage is delayed by 2 minutes. Adjust pace. Shells find the far ridge. They arrive with a flat clap that pushes air into the lungs and takes it away. The rifleman counts the beats between detonations and recites a checklist. Sight clear. Chamber clean. Magazine seated. Safety set. Eyes up. When the barrage lifts, the valley holds its breath. The squad crosses open ground in short rushes, 3 men up while the rest cover. Muzzle flashes blink from a barn window the map did not show. Someone calls direction and distance. The assistant gunner sets the bipod and starts a measured beat. Orders compress as distance closes. The plan becomes verbs. Move. Fix. Flank. The rifleman runs to the hedgerow, drops to a knee, and feeds the sight with the edge of the window. He waits for a shoulder to cross the frame, fires twice, and moves because training says do not die where you fired. They reach the shed with the broken roof. The radio coughs. New order. Hold for armor. The company is ahead of schedule. The oath tightens. Hold. Time stretches. Rain threads the air. Someone repeats the countersign. The platoon sergeant taps the rifleman's boot. Good position. Watch the gap by the fence post. The first enemy crawls low and freezes when the machine gun sweeps. A second tries the ditch and vanishes. Commands crack across the hedges. The squad fires in pairs. The barn window dies. When tanks clatter into view, the sound rolls through the bones. The platoon leader lifts his arm. Advance by bounds. The oath moves with them, invisible. The day has begun, and the orders are now lived rather than spoken. The envelope is stained and stiff at the edges, the paper rippled where rain dried in the foxhole. The ink is not yet faded, but the pencil notes in the corner have begun to smear. I hold it under a hard light and the battlefield returns in fragments. A circle of purple sits over the stamp like a bruise, passed by Army examiner. The censor's number cuts through the date. Someone with cold hands opened this, scanned for a secret that was never there, and pressed it closed again with a strip of brown tape. The postmark is the first anchor. Army Post Office 230. The date reads the 12th, month 11, 1944. The time slug is midnight, which means it entered the bag during the quiet hour when runners swapped sacks and clerks set fresh ink pads. On the back flap, there is a second strike, lighter, almost a ghost. It belongs to a rail junction 2 countries away. The journey began near the line, not inside a city. That suggests a division on the move, not in garrison. The route narrows. I slide the letter from its skin. The creases are neat, as if the writer tucked it away with care between bursts of shelling. The first lines are steady. He writes about mud that swallows ankles, about socks that never dry, about the weight of his rifle when it fills with grit. He does not complain. He measures, catalogs, endures. Midway through the page his script tilts. The pencil digs deeper. He mentions a new lieutenant and a map case that smells of oil and wet string. He names a village without vowels, then scratches it out. The censor would have blacked it anyway. The second envelope lies beneath the first. Different paper, thinner, with a French watermark. The postmark jumps a week ahead. The Army Post Office number is the same, but the killer bars that cancel the stamp are from a traveling unit. The ink gap between bars shows where the clerk's hand hesitated, likely in a truck or a tent pitched on frozen ground. There is a small triangle in red, a field hospital mark, not for the sender but for the mail bag that shared space with litters. The letter rode beside casualties. That explains the smear along the edge. I can almost hear the canvas roof snapping in the wind. Now the after-action report adds a spine to the clues. The regiment recorded contact at dawn 2 days before the first postmark. The report notes a hedgerow, machine gun fire from a farmhouse, mortar rounds walking toward a ditch. It lists 1 killed, 3 wounded, 1 missing during consolidation. In the margin a captain's hand adds, patrol delayed due to road washout. A washed road is a late mail bag. A late bag pushes dates. The timeline clicks, and the letters and the report lock together. The third letter never left the bag. It is unsealed. The fold is loose, as if the writer stopped to look up and never returned to the page. The postmark is only half formed, a crescent of ink with no date core. The clerk did not finish the strike. The censor stamp is missing. The address is perfect and careful, the way a man writes when he wants the letter to find its target without help. Inside are 2 sentences. He begins with weather, then shifts to the men around him. He uses names without ranks. He writes, I will post this when the runner comes back. The runner's bag did not come back. On the canvas table I arranged the envelopes in a line. Purple censor overprint, hospital triangle, traveling cancel, half-formed crescent. Each mark is a footstep. The path snakes from a field kitchen at midnight to a battered crossroads to a railhead that now is a museum car park. The writer moves with the marks. He walks, he digs, he listens for mortars, he waits for orders that cross the front in pencil and breath. I lift the first envelope again and feel the grit trapped in the flap. It is not romantic and it is not tragic for the sake of poetry. It is the residue of a day that began with cold bread and ended under a sky that shook. The postmarks do not weep. They testify. They say the letter entered the system. They say the system tried to carry it forward. They say the chain broke in a place with no witness except smoke. Outside the tent, the wind drags at the guy lines and the map on the wall shivers. I mark the village he scratched out. I draw a thin pencil line along the route that the mail would have taken if the roads held. I circle the gap where the half postmark belongs. Somewhere in that circle he should have handed his page to a clerk with ink-stained thumbs. Instead, the letter lay in a bag under a stretcher, then under another, then under a tarp. The clerk reached for the stamp. The ground lurched. The stamp came down crooked. The bag never reached the rail. I place the unposted letter back into its envelope and slide it beside the others. The clues have done what they can. The day stands whole enough to name. A cold dawn. A hedgerow. A farmhouse. A washed road. A runner who did not return. And a rifleman who left a trail, pressed not into mud, but into paper and ink, so that someone, somewhere, could read the marks and understand how the message almost made it home. Boots sink, then lift, then sink again. The track is not a road, it is a glue trap. Each step takes a small argument with the earth. Mud folds over leather, tries to keep it. The column sways like a slow animal, rifles at a diagonal, packs biting into shoulders. Breath hangs white for a moment, then vanishes. No one speaks unless it is necessary. Necessary is a rare thing. The weight is exact. Helmet on skull. Webbing across chest. Pack grinding spine. Entrenching tool against hip. Ammunition like small bricks that never stop reminding you they are there. Canteen tap against metal cup. The rifle rides the palm and forearm with a constant, dull request, do not drop me. Under it all, the sodden socks rub a raw seam into skin. He knows where it will split first. The hedgerow on the left holds its secrets. The field on the right is a dark sheet with puddles that reflect a broken sky. Somewhere beyond the line of poplars, a gun speaks in a flat, patient voice. No one answers it. The sergeant raises a hand and the column slows. Heads turn without words. A runner passes forward with a note clamped in a fist. The note does not concern anyone beyond the first 3 men, but the message spreads anyway: keep interval, watch the ditches, eyes on the crossings. The orders are old, but they are still alive. He measures distance in breaths and fence posts. 4 breaths to the next print of a hobnail. 3 posts to the next halt. He swallows against a dry throat that refuses the taste of iodine and metal. The smell is soil, oil, damp wool, and the faint bitter ghost of last night's smoke. He thinks of nothing that is not in the next 50 yards. He does not allow images from home to pass through. They slow the feet. They loosen the grip. A man ahead coughs once and smothers it in a sleeve. The squad drifts around a patch of churned ruts where a cart sank and did not return. The private behind him mutters the serial number of his rifle like a prayer because it is better than silence, and because it fits the beat of his steps. The road drops slightly and the puddles deepen. Cold climbs the legs. Ankles ache. Knees negotiate terms. The point man raises a clenched fist. The column freezes as if a switch has clicked. The hedgerow bulges into a shadow that was not there before. The platoon waits. The wind moves the leaves. The shadow resolves into nothing. The hand drops. March again. No one laughs. Relief is private, sealed behind teeth. They pass a gate that swings on one hinge. A rooster stares with bright prehistoric indifference. A house sits with its windows boarded from the inside. There are tracks of bicycles and boots that do not match their tread. The lieutenant notes it and says nothing for now. He will mark it on the map when the column halts. The map is already soft at the folds. The road climbs. The weight shifts forward. Packs saw at straps, rifles slip and are caught. The file breathes louder. He counts another set of fence posts. The sky clears a little, and light flashes on puddles like a signal that no one intends to send. In the distance, a burst of automatic fire rattles and then stops. The sound is both far away and close, as if it has found a path under the skin. A truck skeleton sits on its rims at the crest. The metal smells burnt even in the damp air. The sergeant touches the hood with 2 fingers and then wipes them on his trousers. The column steps off the road and threads through a gap in the hedge. Mud becomes clotted grass. The silence changes shape. It grows alert, as if it has turned to face them. He adjusts the strap of his pack. He sets his jaw. There is no speech for this part. The day is a load to carry from one side to the other. He does not plan beyond noon. The squad takes interval along the field edge, rifles low, eyes working. He matches his pace to the man ahead and the man behind. Boots sink, then lift, then sink again. The mud tries once more, and he takes his foot back. The column goes on. First light is thin and gray when the column leaves the lane and steps into the wet field. Breath hangs in the air. Webbing creaks. The rifleman feels the pull of the pack between his shoulders and the dull weight of the steel helmet. The tree lean ahead looks ordinary, a black fence of trunks and brush. It is quiet enough that the clink of a canteen cap sounds loud. The platoon leader raises a hand. The file breaks into staggered intervals. Every boot sinks slightly and lifts with a cold tear of mud. The point man halts. He kneels and aims his finger, a gap in the hedge, a darker seam where the path meets the woods. The rifleman sees it too. He can smell the damp leaf rot and the sting of cordite from some distant barrage that ended before they began to move. A crow beats up from the branches. The squad leader whispers the plan again, low and flat. Base of fire here. 2 men peel left to scout the ditch. The rifleman takes a knee, sights down the barrel, and watches the gap. There is a breath. It feels like an hour, but it is only a second stretched thin. Then the woods flicker. The first shots arrive before the sound does. Leaves jump and tear. Bark explodes from a trunk to the rifleman's right and slashes his cheek. The sound reaches him as a ripping sheet, then the steady harsh grind of an enemy machine gun. The tree lean is not a line anymore. It is a mouth full of teeth. Down. The word is a shove. The rifleman drops flat. The earth is cold and smells like iron. Rounds hiss over his helmet and bite into the mud with angry little thuds. Someone on the left shouts that a man is hit. The squad leader curses once, clear and controlled, and begins to count his men. A grenade arcs from the brush and lands short, a clumsy oval in the churned soil. The rifleman jams his face into the ground. The blast lifts the mud and salts his tongue with grit. Training pushes in. The assistant gunner yanks the bipod legs wide and the light machine gun cracks back in reply. The rifleman sees the muzzle flame in the corner of his eye. He picks a slit between two trunks and fires a tight pair, then another. His breath tries to gallop. He forces it steady. 2 in, check, 2 in, check. He remembers that the enemy likes to rake the knee line, so he presses himself lower. A round snaps through his sleeve without touching him, and he does not notice until later. Smoke, now. White smoke blooms and begins to crawl across the field. The wind is weak, unhelpful. The tree lean spits again. A man on the right flips onto his back with a cry that sounds like a cough. The rifleman wants to look, but the gap keeps drawing his sight. There is movement there. A helmet? A sleeve? He squeezes and the rifle answers, jumps slightly, settles again. The squad leader taps his boot. You, with me. We will shift left and cut along the ditch. The order feels heavy, but it is clear. The rifleman nods and slides backward, never fully turning his back to the woods. Mud drags at his knees. Another burst rips the top of the hedgerow where his head was seconds before. He feels nothing heroic. He feels the cold, the mud, and the simple wish to keep moving. They reach the ditch. It is shallow but it hides them. The squad leader raises 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. They crawl, pause, listen. The machine gun falters as the base of fire chews back. The rifleman hears the click and smack of his own heart in his ears. A voice in the trees barks a command in a language he understands only by the rhythm of it. The squad leader lobs a grenade. The arc is short and precise. The blast punches the trunks and knocks a skein of leaves into the air. Now. They rise and pour fire into the gap, step by step, never faster than the front sight will allow. The smoke folds around them and then clears. He sees a figure break and run deeper between the trees. He does not chase. He holds the edge and keeps the barrel steady. The machine gun across the field hammers a final burst and goes silent. Silence is not peace. It is the ache after shouting. The rifleman breathes. He lowers the weapon and feels the tremble in his hands. The squad leader speaks into the sudden quiet. Hold the edge. Check your men. Mark the wounded. Watch the right. The words are plain and exact. The rifleman nods and calls out to the man who coughed. There is an answer, thin but alive. He looks back at the field they crossed and sees the path their bodies made through the grass, a bent trail that leads from open ground to the black teeth of the tree lean. First contact is over. The day has only begun. He wipes the streak of bark from his cheek, reloads with slow care, and stares into the woods that tried to keep their secret. He waits for the next order. He waits for the next flicker of leaves. He does not think about home. He thinks about the gap and the line he must hold. He freezes in the ditch as the fire slackens to a scattered rattle. The air smells of soil, cordite, and torn grass. He draws one slow breath. Another. The helmet strap bites his jaw. His fingers shake and press against the damp envelope inside his breast pocket. The paper has softened with sweat and rain. He tells himself he only needs seconds. Seconds to breathe. Seconds to finish a line. He pulls the letter free and shields it with his body. The page is stained brown where the mud found it during the last crawl. The sentence ends halfway across the line. I will be back when he had lifted his head then, and the rounds had snapped the hedgerow leaves into dust. He sets the butt of the rifle in the mud, rests the paper on his knee, and tries to steady the pencil. Across the lane, the tree lean spits a few late shots. The squad leader whispers down the ditch that the machine gun has shifted. Someone laughs once, too loudly, and the sound dies in the wet air. A medic moves past at a crouch, counting men with his eyes. The map case at the leader's hip is folded open, and the grease pencil dot from an hour ago has turned into a smear that means nothing to the ground under their boots. He lowers the pencil and writes, I will be back when the road is clear, when the mail can find this field. He stops. The words feel false. He scratches them out. He hears the clatter of a belt fed somewhere beyond the cow shed, hears the reply of their own gun, hears the sudden hush that follows a feed jam. He does not look up. He does not want the sound to paint pictures in his head. His breath is a metronome. Count 4 in. Hold. Count 4 out. The smoke from the rifle oil on his sleeve is faint and metallic. A bee stumbles through the hedge as if it has lost the idea of summer. He writes again. Today we moved at first light. The lane was slick, and the packs pulled at our shoulders. We passed a farm where the windows faced the ground. A woman watched us from a doorway and did not wave. I thought of your kitchen and the sound of plates drying on a rack. He stops himself. He wipes the pencil with his thumb. No romance. No comforts that feel like lies. The squad leader taps his boot. 30 seconds. Be ready on the left. He nods. He tastes dirt as he swallows. He looks at the letter and chooses a smaller truth. My hands do not feel like mine. The ground keeps trying to take us. I am tired in a way that sits inside the bones. Tell father I used his knife to cut wire. Tell him it was sharp enough. A flare pops behind the tree lean. The smoke drifts low. The lane turns silver for a heartbeat. The men lift their heads the way dogs test the wind. He folds the letter once, then changes his mind and opens it. He adds, if this does not arrive, I was here, and I did the work set in front of me. I went where they sent me. I did not run. He underlines nothing. He does not sign his name. He leaves the line open. He wants room for later. The squad leader mouths, now. Boots push against mud. Bodies rise. He tucks the letter into his pocket and feels the soft square settle against his ribs. He breathes in. He breathes out. He moves with the others, shoulder to shoulder, into the hedge gap and the raw light beyond it. The half-written line presses warm through his shirt, a small weight, a pulse that keeps time as the lane opens, as the world narrows to the first step, and the next, and the next. We spread the map on the hood and pin the corners with dull brass casings. The paper smells of dust and old glue. Rivers are thin blue veins, forests are heavy green blocks, and the ridgelines sit like the backs of buried animals. The route begins at a crossroads marked by a black dot and a name that the locals still speak without haste. According to the morning entry in the after-action reports, the platoon stepped off at first light, 1 squad up, 2 in support, machine gun team on the left, runner carrying fresh orders in a bread bag. The report lists the time as 0630. The map gives us the ground that time tried to swallow. We follow the pencil line along the ditch that borders a beet field. The men kept low, rifles up, breath white in the cold. You can see the logic even now. The ditch offers concealment until the field narrows and meets a stand of pines. The report states that contact came without warning. A burst from the tree lean, one man down, one man crawling backward and pulling his friend by the collar. The map shows a contour line that rises 10 meters here. It explains the angle of fire, the way the enemy could see down into the ditch while remaining unseen. At 0710 the platoon leader shifted right, looking for dead ground. The map shows a slight fold in the terrain, a depression that curves like a palm. It is barely there on paper. On the ground it is a shelter the length of 2 trucks. The report notes that the radio was heavy with static. The sergeant used hand signals and the squads moved in a staggered file. The runner keeps returning to view in the language of these documents. He is a thin line. He is a voice that tries to hold a shape in the wind. We trace the pencil mark to a hedgerow that does not exist anymore. The farmer removed it in a later decade with a machine that ate roots. The map insists it was there. The report confirms that it gave cover long enough to clear the kill zone. The platoon bound forward, 2 men moving while 2 men watched, then trading places, feet sinking in frost that had turned to mud. A mortar round fell short. The blast sheared branches and filled the air with the soft hiss of needles. The report lists the casualty as severe. The map shows nothing but a green square. It is honest in one way and indifferent in another. At 0830 the platoon reached a farm lane that bent toward a narrow bridge. The report says the bridge was intact but wired. The engineer team cut the leads with a knife and a calm hand, and the platoon crossed one by one, rifles high, eyes on the windows of a barn that looked asleep. On the map the bridge is a simple symbol. On the ground it is a throat that can close without warning. We keep moving with the line, across the stream, into the next field where the ground rises in soft steps. The report notes a pause for rations and a check of ammunition. Names appear and vanish. One man is marked as missing after the push to the orchard. A margin note says he rejoined at dusk, silent and gray, with a boot sole torn away. The map shows the orchard as a circle of trees. In truth those trees still stand, but they bear a different fruit now and do not care who once bled among them. At 1000 the company order arrives. The platoon must take the knoll that overlooks the road. The map paints the knoll as a tidy oval. The report paints it with fragments and urgent verbs. Fire from the right, shift left, smoke for concealment, hold until relieved. The pencil line breaks and resumes on the far side. You can feel the sprint in that skip, the heat in the lungs, the flat taste of fear. The enemy falls back, then tests the line with probing shots. The platoon digs in along the crown of the hill, shallow scrapes that drink the rain. By noon the route ends at a copse that hides a view of the valley and a town with a steeple that points at nothing. The report concludes with a count that does not equal the start. The map does not change. We fold it along the old creases. The paper size and the brass casings keep their watch. The line we traced is no longer a mark of graphite. It is the shape of decisions made under pressure, the weight of ground that argues with every step, the record of a day that held more than it could carry and still demanded more. The platoon halts in a shallow fold of ground where the wind pushes the grass flat and the tree line keeps its secrets. Helmets settle. Packs drop with a tired clatter. The squad leader marks sectors with a knife and a glance, then signals a short stand-to. Rifles rest across knees. The air smells of damp earth, cordite, and something burned that no one wants to name. A runner moves down the file with a burlap sack. Rations. Not a feast, not even comfort, just fuel. Cardboard boxes appear in hands. A can of cheese spread. 3 biscuits that threaten to break a tooth. A small chocolate bar that is half melted. A pouch of powdered drink that promises lemon and tastes like a metal canteen. Someone taps a single cigarette against his helmet and passes it to the man who shakes the most. Lighters rasp. Smoke lifts and flattens in the wind. Water discipline is the rule. Canteens tip for only a heartbeat. The medic checks bandages that were tied in a hurry at dawn. He says nothing. He does not need to say anything. The men can read his face like a map. The radio hums low against a rib cage while the operator cups the handset with both hands. He listens long, answers short, and keeps the antenna low behind a hedge of nettles. Rumors run faster than any messenger. A whisper says the road ahead is mined. Another says the enemy pulled back during the barrage. A third says an armored car rolled through the village at first light and never returned. No one knows the truth. The only proof is the ground under their boots and the way a crow will not land near the orchard. Someone opens his letter. It is the one he started last night and did not finish. The paper is soft and stained. He reads it once and folds it into his breast pocket. The words inside it feel heavier than the spare bandolier on his shoulder. He looks down the hedgerow where the next field begins, and his jaw tightens. The squad leader kneels and sketches the plan in the dirt with the same calm he uses when unkinking a sling. Orchard, lane, wall, barn. Fire Team 1 bounds to the low stone wall. Fire Team 2 covers from the ditch and then trades places. The machine gun watches the lane. The grenadier counts his fuses. The plan is simple because simple is what survives first contact. A gust carries the thin clink of metal on metal from the trees ahead. Every neck tenses. The click of a safety moves like a small accusation. The radio operator raises his eyes and nods once. Green light from platoon. The next push is theirs. They eat the last biscuit and pocket the waxed paper. Trash gives positions away. A man rubs mud into the shine of a buckle. Another checks his front sight 3 times although it did not move. A third studies the edge of the wall as if it were a coastline on a chart. The world narrows to distances that a heartbeat can measure. Resolve does not arrive like a speech. It arrives like breath steadied in the back of the throat. It is the choice to stand, to heft the pack that digs into the same bruises, to put one boot in front of the other into a field that might hold nothing or everything. No one says brave words. No one needs to. The point man raises 2 fingers, then 1. He slips into the hedge and becomes part of it. The others follow in a rhythm that the day has taught them. Bound, cover, check, move. Dirt scuffs. A strap creaks. The machine gun rests heavy and patient in careful hands. Somewhere in the orchard a branch snaps. The first rifle rises. The first breath freezes. The next moment will choose its shape. Until then there is only rations in the belly, rumors in the air, and the quiet weight of resolve that holds the line between both. The squad waits behind a hedgerow in a thin morning drizzle. The rifleman hands over his letter. The platoon runner takes it, fixes the pouch on his chest, and checks his wristwatch. The lieutenant points to a farm lane between 2 orchards. The runner will cross the fields, pass the aid station, and reach the battalion mail jeep. He sets off. He moves through gray trees. The lane is not empty. A cart lies on its side. Hobnail prints mark the mud. A machine gun rattles from the ridge and a carbine snaps in answer. He drops into a ditch, counts, then moves low and quick. Splinters hiss in branches. He keeps moving. At the aid station he sees stretchers and rain pooling in tin cups. A nurse tells him the jeep left early. The letters press his ribs. He chooses a narrow path behind a mossy wall. The wall ends. The ground becomes a shallow bowl of churned earth. A strange whistle splits the air. The bowl lifts in dust. He dives behind a stump. The pouch digs into his side. He tells himself he is a road and the letters are traffic that must not stop. He crawls until elbows ache and knees burn, and the stump becomes a fallen gatepost. At the ridge a squad in different helmets signals him down. Friendly but shaken. The sergeant wants news. He offers none. He has only mail and a route. They point to a culvert. He slides into the cold pipe, water drumming, and emerges to the smell of cordite and apples. Beyond the orchard he finds the jeep. It leans on a bare rim. The windshield is starred. There is no driver, no clerk, only a map pinned to the hood by a knife. Fire ticks in the distance. The route is broken. He lifts the pouch, studies the apple rows, and chooses a new line. He will go on foot. He will carry the letters until he finds a road. He does not pray. He counts trees, fences, breaths, and the seconds between shells. He is a clock and a bridge and a moving dot on a map no longer pinned to anything. He moves because stopping will not deliver. Now. The hedge is a black wall against a field of shattered corn. Orders arrive without ceremony: reach the line, dig in, hold. He pushes forward with his squad, chest tight, the unfinished letter pressed flat inside his jacket. The field is wet and uneven. A German machine gun opens, a straight saw of fire. He dives, mud in his teeth, and feels the letter bend against his ribs like a fragile bone. Smoke grenades bloom. The Browning automatic rifle hammers beside him. He counts to 3, rises, runs, drops, repeats, the world narrowed to breath and distance. Mortar rounds fall short, then creep closer. The hedge grows from a smudge into thorn and root and stone. He slams in behind it and begins to dig, steel on soil, hands already numb. A runner crawls through and says the flank failed. Hold anyway. He sets fields of fire, checks magazines, shares water that tastes of metal. A cry for a medic cuts off. The enemy tests the hedge with bursts and grenades, then fades. Twilight bleeds into a dull blue. He thumbs the safety, waits, listens. He takes out the letter, adds one line with a shaking hand: I am still here. Then he shoulders the rifle and keeps the hedge. The page is damp and creased where his glove pressed too hard. He writes by the glow of a shielded torch, helmet chinstrap biting his jaw. The letter begins with routine words: a safe bridge to a safer world. He pauses as the platoon sergeant whispers the new axis of advance. The pencil returns to the paper. He describes the smell of wet canvas and oil, the grind of webbing, the ache in his shoulders. The sentence reaches for the next thought and stalls when a flare blooms over the hedgerow. He folds the paper once, not to finish, but to free both hands. The first burst of machine gun fire rips along the ditch. He moves low, counting heartbeats as distance, hearing the section leader call left, then right, then forward. Mud pulls at his boots. A rifle slips in the dark. Someone curses. He does not. He keeps moving. Grenades arc and thud. The squad crosses a gate blown inward by yesterday's tank. He reaches the wall where the courier was supposed to meet them. No courier. He feels for the letter and the soft edge of the unfinished line. Mortar rounds begin to walk toward the orchard. He pulls the pin, throws, advances 3 paces, fires twice. The recoil steadies him more than the air. At dawn the field is a low haze of cordite and breath. He opens the letter again. He tries to complete the thought. His pencil breaks. The sentence remains open. The report will say, objective taken. Casualties sustained. Letter, not sent. After the firing ends, the ground keeps talking. The ditch holds the warmth of bodies. The rifleman's pack lies open, rain pooling in the flap, a dark mirror reflecting clouds that do not care. I lift the last letter he began, the paper bent and gritty. It smells of damp wool and cordite. His handwriting is firm at first, then smaller, then a faint, wandering line. He tried to say he was fine. He tried to say the hill was nothing. The sentence breaks where the barrage began. We walk his route backwards. Each step answers a question and opens another. There is a torn field dressing by the cart track, a spoon stamped with an army number, a heel print drained full of water. Crows rise when we pass. A farmer watches from the road and points. He remembers the winter trucks, the men who traded chocolate for a shovel, the crater that swallowed a cow. The map and the after-action report agree on the timings but not on the weight. Numbers do not hold breath. They do not hold the glaze that comes over eyes when the shelling pauses. The squad advanced 200 yards. The machine gun was silenced. The position was held. The man who wrote the letter did not move again. At the hedgerow I read his unfinished lines to the camera. There is no music, only wind, and the clack of a distant gate. What remains is ordinary and heavy, mud, ink, metal, a name on a spoon, a road that does not notice our feet. Memory lives here without permission, and it asks us to carry what he could not finish.